Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, talk about the Serie del Caribe, Jackie Robinson's legacy, and a little bit about all-stars that are homegrown. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans, Vince Samperio here. This is Locked On Dodgers, and we are the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On, your team every day. I am Vince Samperio, Chavez Green Fiends, and I will be rolling solo for the day. Jeff had you guys covered yesterday. I got you guys covered today, and maybe we'll be together for tomorrow's episode. And no news coming from MLB. The lockout is still going on. The two sides did meet, and it doesn't seem like they're close. So we are now 11 days away from jeopardizing when pitchers and catchers are supposed to report, and the way negotiations have been going, and how long it's been taking them to actually have conversations. It doesn't look like pitchers and catchers will report on February 14th, but that remains to be seen. We will be hoping for a last-second miracle, but at this point, and one of the reports we have seen is that owners don't care too much about April games because they are usually lower in attendance. There's usually because of bad weather and other things. So maybe that's what it is. Certainly doesn't seem the owners are negotiating in the greatest of faith, since every time we see a report, it's players backing off their demands and the owners kind of just staying with theirs. So that's where we're at. I will say, and it might be a little bit too late for since there's only one game left, but there is baseball going on, and that is the Serie del Caribe, which is a tournament held among a few countries, played in February after all the winter leagues have been played in those countries. It's Colombia, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela. Cuba used to be in there, and I think Colombia and Panama were recently added. But they all have winter leagues. They all have different leagues, however many teams they have. The champion of each league goes into this tournament. They play round robin, and then they play top four, make playoffs, and go from there. Today will be the final between Colombia and the Dominican Republic. There are no Dodgers, I believe, on either team, former or current. There are some major leaguers on the Dominican side. You got Robinson Cano, you got Jose Siri from the Astros, you got Marcelo Zuna, and a few pitchers on the Colombian side. I believe it's Sandy Leon, and I think that's it for major leaguers or guys that are close to the major leagues. But either way, it's on ESPN Deportes or on the ESPN Plus app. You can check it out. It's at 3 p.m. today. But for those of you that have never had never heard of the Serie del Caribe, it's a fun, winter tournament. Like I said, it's baseball that's played. It's played. Well, the winter leagues obviously happen in November, December, a little bit of January, and then the Serie del Caribe is usually toward the beginning of February, end of January, and it's probably equivalent to like AAA baseball, but it's baseball at the end of the day. It's fun to watch. Most of the times they're in fun environments. This year they're in the Dominican Republic, and anytime the Dominican Republic team is actually playing, the crowd's going crazy. You've seen the Mexican crowd, Colombia. All the countries are represented there. Their crowd gets a lot of fun, and it's fun to watch. I know back in the day, more prominent players used to play more often. You used to get a lot of guys from the major leagues come down and pick a different league and play. Not so much anymore, probably because teams don't allow them. We've seen a couple guys, I believe Zach Rex, maybe Matt Beatty, a couple of those guys have played in the winter leagues in the past few years, but usually the team probably asks them to not do that. So that's how it goes. But if that's something you want to check out, it's at 3 p.m. today. It should be a good game. Colombia has actually been dominating a lot of games. Dominican Republic, despite all their talent on there, they haven't necessarily been dominating, but they do have the most wins, but they've had a lot of close wins. But yeah, we'll see how it goes there. And that's something you want to check out. It's something that's baseball. It's actual baseball being played, and it's something you might want to watch. So if that's something that suits your needs, go ahead. And the Serie is starting to become, I guess, bigger in the United States, or maybe they're trying to make it bigger in the United States, because in 2024 it's going to be in Miami. I think that would be the first time that it was held in the United States. Usually it circles between all the countries. So Dominican, Mexico, it's been in Panama, it's been in obviously Puerto Rico, it's been all over. But 2024 will be in Miami. So they are trying to cater or get it more popular in the United States, I would imagine. So that's something to look out for if you want to take a trip to watch baseball in Miami in February. There you go. You got something to do. All right, we're going to talk about Jackie Robinson and his legacy and coming off his birthday, the beginning of Black History Month, and just everything that's encapsulated in that. But first, let's talk about Built Bar. New year, new resolution. Some people, January is like trial month, as they say. February starts the new year. And if you want some help, Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and that's here to help you stick to whatever you want to do with this new year. All the bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Most bars contain around 130 calories, 4 grams sugar, 4 grams net carbs, 17 grams protein. That's everything you could want in a candy bar, but it's a protein bar, but it tastes like a candy bar. It's crazy. They got a bunch of flavors. They're always adding flavors. They're always, trying out new flavors. They're always coming out with different packages where you can get your flavors. And there's really nothing else I can tell you but go get Built Bar. So go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. I want to thank you and remind you to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. We're here every weekday morning. We are free and available wherever we get podcasts and on YouTube. So check us out. Tell your friends about us. Spread the word. Yeah, get it out there. All right. So January 31st was Jackie Robinson's birthday. This April 15th of 2022 will be 75 years since Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. And there's just a lot that's, part of that. We are now in February, which is Black History Month. So it's been, if you've been on social media or been paying attention, you've seen a lot of sports celebrating the month. And, we saw the Dodgers celebrate Jackie Robinson. Dave Roberts hosted, I think, John Muir High School, the baseball and softball teams from there, which is where Jackie Robinson went. The Dodgers made a donation to the school. And Roberts talked about, the direct impact Jackie Robinson had on his own career. Dave Roberts is Black and Japanese. He's the first person of color to manage the Dodgers. And, he understands what Jackie Robinson meant to not only the African-American community, but, the entire baseball community as a whole. Without him, you just don't know. Obviously, at some point, it would have been integrated. But as we've seen from, if you've seen the movies or if you read about it or anything else, Jackie Robinson was seemingly the perfect guy to be the first one to break the color barrier. He understood what the significance was. He understood that a lot of people aren't going to like it. He understood that it might cause issues, and he's not going to be loved, and he's going to get yelled at and whatever else the case is and probably a lot worse than any of us will ever endure in our life. And he was able to persevere through that, push through that. And not only did he break the color barrier, but he was a legit baseball player that, helped the Dodgers and ended up being a Hall of Famer. So it took a lot of different parts, and like I said, by this point, I would imagine baseball would be integrated without him, but it took him to make it okay, make it fine, and push to where we're at now. And unfortunately, where we're at now is a decline in Black baseball players, but there's also a lot of players that look up to him, and we have Mookie Betts specifically in terms of Black baseball players. David Price, the Dodgers have had countless players through the years, and even with the decline, it's still his legacy still holds on 75 years later, and it's something that as a Dodger fan, it's easy to take for granted, but also something that you remember and try not to take for granted. You definitely, as a fan of the Dodgers, and then also me as a Raider fan, the Raiders broke some barriers in a few areas as well, and it's you have pride in that. You have pride in being a fan of that franchise. And the Dodgers haven't done anything to really put us off from that. And they've always, been a pillar in the community. They've always helped out wherever they can. They've always celebrated what needs to be celebrated. And it's just, great to be part of that. It's great to see the Robinson family. I believe Jackie's son, David, his second son, was on hand when they hosted those students, and he talked to them as well. And it's just about making sure the legacy is not forgotten, celebrating anytime you can, and making sure that everyone knows the story. And if you don't know the story, look it up or watch the movie, or do some research if you want, and kind of see what the impact was, how he did it, and how it resonated, and why he's still celebrated to this day. Because honestly, as long baseball may not be as popular as it was in America right now, but you don't know the names of the first, or you may, but most people don't know the names of the first player to break the color barrier in other sports. Jackie Robinson is that guy, and he's become more than just a baseball icon. Like I said, he's become an icon to Black players all over, to Hispanic players, to Asian players, to anybody that's considered a minority or has been considered a minority in the past. He's part of that legacy, and we're not sure where baseball would be at without him. It might be a little bit different, and it definitely wouldn't have been as smooth as it was if it wasn't for him. So, shout out to Jackie Robinson and the continued efforts by the Dodgers and by the Robinson family to make sure his story lives on forever. And transitioning that into what I mentioned now with Black History Month, we've seen, or if you have Mookie Betts on social media, you've seen that and I'm assuming he's going to do one every day. He shouted out someone each day on his social media. On February 1st, it was Curtis Flood, who basically paved the way for free agency in today's major league. He's a guy that his story is probably undertold. Someone else that if you want to do some research and check that out and look into him, Curtis Flood. I can't remember who he did yesterday, but he is one of those guys. I mean, Mookie's that guy who we've already talked about him and his off season. Oh, he did Ferguson Jenkins yesterday, and I'm sure he'll do another player today. And Mookie's a guy that continues to be part of that Jackie Robinson legacy. He's maybe not a direct reflection of it, but he's a pretty strong reflection of it. He's now being part of it. The Players Alliance was created with a lot of these players that want to continue to help out in the community, want to get participation in baseball up, and just want to genuinely grow the game. And Mookie Betts is part of that. And Mookie Betts is, a bona fide superstar who doesn't have to do this type of stuff, but he does it because he understands his impact on the game. He understands his impact on, young Black kids, and not just Black kids, obviously, but in his direct way, it's young Black kids that want to participate in baseball, and he's trying to help out, and he's being part of that legacy. And as we talked about him the other day with the offseason and going to Rams games and Laker games and being part of the LA community, he's now integrated himself into, or he's already been integrated, but he's now cementing his legacy in a lot of communities in the baseball world, in the world in general. Mookie Betts has done a lot of great things and off the field and charity wise, and like I said, with the Players Alliance now, and now educating people on social media, and it just adds to the tool belt that he has, and the man, the jack of all trades that Mookie Betts is. And we appreciate him as Dodger fans, but we also appreciate him as baseball fans, and also appreciate him just as a human being. So, want to shout out to Mookie Betts, and just say that we're glad to have you as Dodger fans, and we hope you continue to do what you do and continue to be that strong character that has grown into himself here in the last few years, and will continue to grow the next 10 years with the Dodgers. We're going to talk about next is an article in The Athletic by, I think, Eno Saris, about organizational droughts and homegrown all-stars, and how often how often the Dodgers have had them, and see when some of those droughts may be broken. But first, let's talk about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game in a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so Eno Saris put out an article talking about looking at MLB prospects that turn into all-stars, and looking at every team and how often they've had, or not how often they've had it, but when's the last time they had an all-star at every position. And for the Dodgers, for the most part, they've had an all-star at every position since 2008, minus one position, that's third base. And it's not that they've never had a third baseman that's been an all-star. Obviously, Justin Turner has made it, but they haven't had a drafted or signed player, homegrown talent, be an all-star at third base since 1987 with Pedro Guerrero. So if we're going to run through the list and just see where they're at and see when that possibly could change. Starting at catcher, Russell Martin was the last homegrown all-star, and that was back in 2008. It should have ended in 2021 with Will Smith, but he was not named to the all-star team. So 2022, Will Smith will be an all-star, barring any crazy developments or an injury. So that catcher drought from 2008 will be erased in 2022 with Will Smith. First base, you have it depends how you vote, how you feel about it, but Steve Garvey and Cody Bellinger. So Steve Garvey was 1981, Cody Bellinger 2017. Bellinger mostly played first base in 2017, so I'm not sure why there's a distinction here. But yeah, that drought was 2017, fixed by that. If Cody Bellinger ever wants to play first base again or plays first base on a more consistent basis, then he would break that. Other than that, there's not anybody that you're like, oh, yeah, the first base little drought will be fixed, or will be will be a new first base all-star. I don't know when that's going to happen. The Dodgers don't necessarily have any first base prospects. So if they sign Freddie Freeman, they're going to have him for a few years over there. If not, they'll have Max Muncy hopefully for a few more years over there. And there's not necessarily somebody that stands out that says, oh yeah, they're going to be the next homegrown all-star first baseman for the Dodgers. But 2017, not that long ago, so you don't have to worry about it. Second base, D. Gordon back in 2014. That's last time. And this one is hopefully easy to answer. Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux, if he gets another shot at second base or ends up becoming what Jeff and most people believe he can be, that's an all-star. And that would remedy the situation of being the last one being in 2014. I don't know if it happens this year. It's very possible to happen 2023, 2024. But let's hope it does happen this year, and let's hope that Gavin Lux does become that breakout star that we've been waiting for, and the first homegrown Dodger All-Star second base since 2014. Now, third base is where the real drought is. 1987, Pedro Guerrero, and this one might take a few years, but it's going to be contingent on some of these prospects panning out. Miguel Vargas has been in just about every single top 100 prospect list this offseason. He does play third base. I know there's been some people have mentioned that maybe he doesn't stick at third base, but as of right now, he's the guy that would break that drought. He's going to play third base. He can rake, and if he can help out the Dodgers here in the next 3-4 years, he could possibly break that drought by 2024, maybe 2025. So let's hope Miguel Vargas is that guy. Interesting to note that Adrian Beltray, who had that crazy year in 2004, apparently wasn't good enough in the first half of that season, or something happened because he was not an all-star, because that would have been 2004 would have been the drought instead of 1987. But hey, things happen. You got shortstop Corey Seager, 2017. This is one that also could take a while, and it just depends, I guess. Trey Turner's signed long term, then it's going to take a while until a homegrown shortstop happens. If not, Gavin Lux could theoretically slide over to shortstop and could be that guy. The Dodgers don't necessarily have a shortstop in the pipeline right now, or at least one that's close. I know I think Eddie's Leonard's a shortstop, and he got added to the 40-man this offseason, but that would be quite a jump to go from where he's at now, barely on a couple prospect lists, to an all-star in the next few years. So Gavin Lux is the best hope at shortstop. That also does remind me, at second base, Michael Busch could find his way there if he hits like people think he can hit, and if he sticks at second base, and Lux does move over to shortstop or stays in a utility role or whatever the case is. Michael Busch could be second base. Gavin Lux is the hope at shortstop. Other than that, it's going to take a while, and I'm not sure who would it be. For outfield, you got, once again, not sure why there's two, but Cody Bellinger, 2019, Jock Peterson, 2015. Cody Bellinger will be the next one, homegrown talent to be an all-star for the Dodgers, assuming that he gets back on track like we all believe he can. Starting pitcher, 2021, Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler will probably be an all-star for years to come. So him or Julio will be the next starting pitcher all-stars that are homegrown talent. And then at reliever, you got Jansen in 2018. Jansen could potentially do it again next year if the Dodgers sign him. But if not, I was going to say Brusdar Graterol, but he's not homegrown. They got him from the Twins. So this one is up in the air. It's hard, to have a reliever, because it usually means you have to fail at something else to be a homegrown reliever. The Dodgers do have some guys that could fit that mold here in the next few years. Like if Bobby Miller doesn't quite pan out as a starter, let's just say Dustin May continues to have arm troubles but ends up being able to handle a reliever position. There's different ways to go about it, but I'm not going to put anybody on a list like, oh, yeah, you're going to be a reliever all-star, because, like I said, it usually means that you failed at maybe starting pitching, or in Jansen's case, at catching, or being able to hit as catcher. So I won't put that out there, but I'm sure the Dodgers will have one eventually, and that's the way it goes. So this was cool, little exercise. Shout out to Eno Saris for putting this together, and that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Samperio. You can always call and then leave a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-5625. You can send us a DM on any of those social media accounts. You can send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Search My Device Play Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.